In 1968, Mexico's economy was flourishing. They were experiencing an economic boom called the Mexican Miracle. During this period of time, Mexico's employment percentage was skyrocketing and inflation was rock bottom, leading them to host the 1968 Summer Olympics. The 1968 Summer Olympics were held in Mexico City. In 1968, inequality was growing rapidly worldwide, whether it be student movements or rights movements. Tommie Smith and John Carlos were both black and upcoming athletes representing the United States track team at the 1968 Olympics. Smith and Carlos were both phenomenal track athletes, leading to their qualifying for the 200-meter sprint final. They both crossed the finish line, with Carlos winning gold and Smith winning bronze. As the eyes of over 17 million people worldwide watched, Tommie Smith and John Carlos approached the podium at the 1968 Olympics. Little did the world know their actions would change Olympic history forever. This is the story of the Black Power Salute, a fight against inequality worldwide. The Black Power Salute occurred during the Star-Spangled Banner of the 200-meter sprint medal ceremony. During this action, Smith and Carlos both raised their fists in the air and bowed their heads with the black scarf wrapped around their necks. They also wore beads and an Olympic Project for Human Rights pin, and also refused to wear shoes and rather wore black socks. Smith and Carlos had the right to perform the Black Power Salute, as per the rights protected by the First Amendment and Articles 19 and 20 of the UDHR. According to the First Amendment and the U.S. Constitution, the right to freedom of speech, religion, expression, petition, and assembly are protected. Articles 19 and 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, states the right to freedom of speech, expression, and peaceful assembly. The raising of their fists, the bowing of their heads, the black scarves around their necks, the pins they wore, and the black socks they wore were all forms of peaceful expression and speech. None were directly hurt or injured as a result of the actions of Smith and Carlos, further proving the Black Power Salute was peaceful. Smith and Carlos had the responsibility to perform the Black Power Salute, to represent Black Americans, honor Martin Luther King Jr., and address educational inequality. In 1968, the Civil Rights Movement was occurring in the United States and was a fight for the basic rights of Black Americans, such as being able to sit anywhere on the bus. An expansion of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968. This expansion was called the Fair Housing Act and guaranteed basic housing rights to all, regardless of race. Smith and Carlos had the responsibility to empower Black Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, a movement that led to the passage of the Fair Housing Act. Martin Luther King Jr. died on January 20th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. Martin Luther King Jr., MLK, was a major activist in the Civil Rights Movement. MLK often wrote letters and gave speeches of empowerment to Black Americans during the Civil Rights Movement. Smith and Carlos felt they had the responsibility to uplift the Black community after the death of such a prominent figure. In 1968, educational inequality was present worldwide. Student movements were taking place worldwide, whether it be Mexico or Paris. The Mexican student movement was a fight for the rights of students against the Mexican government, and took place months before the 1968 Summer Olympics. Across the world, the Paris student movement was taking place, and was a fight for the rights of French students against their government. The Mexican student movement and the Paris student movement were only two of the multiple student movements taking place, only highlighting the educational inequality at the time. Smith and Carlos had the right to perform the Black Power Salute under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Articles 19 and 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech and expression for all U.S. citizens, regardless of location. Their silent but powerful gesture, raising their fists and bowing their heads, was a peaceful form of expression that did not cause harm to any specific individual, furthering their right under constitutional protection. Additionally, Articles 19 and 20 of the UDHR protect the rights to freedom of opinion, expression, and peaceful assembly. The UDHR is a document consisting of over 30 articles, providing rights to all humans worldwide. Smith and Carlos have explicitly stated that their salute was a symbolic fight against racism.
It was a chance to heighten the idea that we must eradicate stupidity called racism.
The Black Power salute was a peaceful act, as none were hurt directly by the raising of Smith and Carlos's fists or the bowing of their heads. Since their actions remained peaceful, the Black Power salute was fully protected under both the First Amendment and Articles 19 and 20 of the UDHR.